Admiral Vextar of the Hegemony Third Fleet watched the human vessels approach through the tactical display, his four eyes narrowing with disdain. The primitive craft looked more like ancient ocean vessels than proper starships, crude angular things with unnecessary protrusions and what appeared to be decorative elements that served no tactical purpose. "They call those warships?" Commander Zilf chittered beside him, her mandibles clicking with amusement. "Look at them, Admiral. They're flying museums." The bridge crew of the Dominion's Edge erupted in laughter. After conquering 17 species across 12 sectors, the Hegemony had grown accustomed to swift victories. Their sleek crystalline vessels were marvels of engineering, perfect geometric forms optimized for maximum efficiency in the vacuum of space. "Engage communication protocols," Vextar ordered, still smirking. "Let's see what these humans have to say for themselves." The holographic display flickered to life, revealing a weathered human face beneath a strange cloth cap. The being appeared relaxed, almost casual, despite facing the most feared fleet in the galaxy. "This is Captain Sarah Chen of the UES Leviathan," the human said, her voice carrying an odd accent. "You're trespassing in Terran space. Turn around and leave and we'll pretend this never happened." Vextar's laughter boomed across the bridge. "Terran space? Child, you're addressing Admiral Vexistar of the Hegemony Third Fleet. We have conquered civilizations that were building starships while your species was still crawling in mud. Surrender now, and we may allow some of you to serve as laborers." Captain Chen's expression didn't change. "Well, Admiral, that's where you've made your first mistake. You see, we humans have been sailing dangerous waters for thousands of years. And space?" She smiled grimly. "Space is just another ocean." The human fleet began to move, and Vextar's amusement died instantly. The ships weren't following standard military formations. They were moving like pack hunters. The lead vessels spread out in a complex pattern that seemed chaotic, but felt disturbingly purposeful. "All ships engage," Vextar commanded. The Hegemony fleet opened fire with their particle beams, precise lances of energy that had shattered the defenses of countless worlds. But the human ships, they didn't behave like proper spacecraft. They rolled and pitched like vessels riding invisible waves, their movements unpredictable and somehow organic. "Sir," Sylph called out, her voice now tense. "They're not trying to avoid our fire. They're using our own shots to mask their approach vectors." Vextar watched in growing disbelief as human ships dove below the plane of battle, using the three-dimensional nature of space in ways he'd never seen. They moved with an intuitive understanding of momentum and gravity that defied conventional tactics. The Leviathan swept past the Hegemony flagship's shields like a predator breaching the surface, its weapons tearing into the crystalline hull, but it was the human pilot's voice over the comm that truly unsettled Vextar. "Hard to port, you beautiful beast." Captain Chen laughed. "Ride that solar wind and give 'em hell." "Solar wind?" The Admiral's tactical display showed no significant stellar phenomena in the area, yet the humans were moving as if they could feel currents and tides invisible to Hegemony sensors. "Analysis," Vextar barked. "Sir," his science officer reported, his voice trembling. "They're using microgravitational fields, solar radiation pressure, even the magnetic fields of nearby planets. They're treating space itself as a navigational medium." More human ships emerged from what the Hegemony had assumed was empty space, having somehow used asteroid shadows and debris fields as cover. They moved with a fluid coordination that spoke of millennia spent reading wind and wave, adapted now to cosmic forces. "Ramming speed," came another human voice over the comm. "Show these landlubbers how we handle a storm." A human destroyer, severely damaged and venting atmosphere, suddenly accelerated directly at a Hegemony cruiser. But at the last moment it spun like a dancer, using its momentum to swing around and deliver a devastating broadside before disappearing behind a gas cloud. "Impossible," Zilf whispered. "How do they calculate those trajectories in real time?" But Vextar was beginning to understand. The humans weren't calculating. They were feeling their way through space the way their ancestors had felt the rhythm of ocean swells. They read the invisible currents of gravity and radiation like wind patterns, anticipated the ebb and flow of cosmic forces like tidal changes. A human corvette, callsign Storm Petrel, danced between three Hegemony dreadnoughts, its pilot somehow using the gravitational interference between the massive ships to slingshot in impossible directions. The radio chatter was full of nautical terms that made no sense in vacuum, but somehow perfectly described what Vextar was witnessing. "She's caught in the doldrums between those two heavies," one pilot reported. "Negative, Seahawk," came the reply. "I've got a fair wind here. Watch me ride this current home." The tide of battle turned as human reinforcements arrived. Not in orderly formation, but like a fleet racing before a storm, each ship finding its own perfect line through the chaos. They fought with the patient savagery of people who had learned to survive in the most hostile environment their world could offer, then brought that knowledge to an even more hostile realm. As his flagship's shields failed and human boarding pods latched onto the hull like barnacles, Admiral Vextar finally understood. The hegemony fought space as conquerors, seeking to dominate an empty void. But humans? Humans had made space their home, their ocean, their natural domain. Captain Chen's voice crackled over the comm one last time as hegemony ships surrendered across the battlefield. "Admiral, you wanted to know what makes humans different? We're the only species that looked at the most dangerous, hostile environment we knew, the open ocean, and decided to call it home. Space is just a bigger ocean, with stranger tides." Vextar stared at the tactical display showing the remnants of his once proud fleet. In the distance, human ships moved like dolphins through stellar currents, perfectly at home in the cosmic deep. "Prepare surrender protocols," he said quietly. The humans had taught the galaxy a lesson written in the language of salt spray and stellar winds. You don't conquer the ocean. You learn to dance with it, to read its moods and ride its power. And in the vast ocean of space, humanity had found their truest calling. The Third Fleet had come to conquer. Instead, they had learned why humans called the stars their sea.